Many in the MAGA base have turned on Trump recently over this increasingly entangled war with Iran that keeps leaning towards ground troops, as well as Trump's steadfast allegiance to job-stealing AI data centers. Though many remain aligned with Trump's scapegoating of immigrants, the day is not far off that a broader and deeper understanding of ICE in practice, the facial recognition glasses, the databases of undesirable citizens, the attacks on citizens, and centralization of data and power during this largest presidential grift in U.S. history will surely awaken millions more. Maybe even those who served in Afghanistan who still value integrity and loyalty. Last month in Dallas, an Afghan man and veteran of the U.S. war against the Taliban living in the U.S. under protected status died in ICE custody. Nazir Patiawal was pronounced dead 24 hours after being detained. The younger Patiawal said that his brother is who inspired his own decision to go to work as a translator for U.S. troops. Both brothers, they believed in the U.S. mission to bring peace and stability to their country and were willing to sacrifice their lives for it, end quote. They were willing to sacrifice their lives in the hope of freedom from the Taliban, trust in the United States, and could not have imagined this outcome, victims of the United States' own war on immigrants.
Hold on, what did you just say about Trump?
I said, Trump's a fucking liar. Inflation's going up. Gas prices hasn't really come down that much. Eggs, that's a funny one. The eggs. I'm mad. And I'm a MAGA man. Okay? I don't see anything he's done.
So is it safe to say that the illusion has faded?
I think it has, yes. You know, I was for him because, everything he said, he played right into my hands. He just told us everything we wanted to hear. That's what he did. I can't even stand to look at him because, he's just he's a con. He's a flat ass, nothing but a fucking con. They all the right side, they say, oh yeah, the Biden side was so bad. Well, what's so good about the right side? He brags about doing something with our economy, but I haven't seen anything happen yet. That big beautiful bill is going to add, they say $2.5 trillion. It's going to add about $4 trillion to the debt. The big beautiful bill. Oh, what a joke. Remember what happened in the 80s with trickle-down economics? Yeah, the filthy rich got richer, and us guys that worked for a living paid more taxes. I'm disappointed.
Wow. Things are going very, very badly for Donald Trump, and he is not taking it well. He is panicked, and he is melting down. MAGA is cracking up. I know a lot of people don't believe it, but I'm telling you, we are witnessing the end of Donald Trump and of MAGA. The whole thing is crashing and burning. Republicans are panicked over this war. They're scared to death of getting wiped out in the midterms. And now they're panicked that Trump is actually going to go forward with a ground invasion of Iran. And they are doing everything they can, I'm sure, behind the scenes and also publicly, begging him not to go forward with this. I've got some comments from Nancy Mace that I want to share with you. And I think she speaks for what is probably the Republican consensus on this, although it doesn't seem like they're all opposed to this war, because we just see a handful of the same people who go on TV, defending Donald Trump and this war. But most of these Republicans in Washington, I guarantee you, want this to end yesterday. They're scared to death of this thing dragging on and of Donald Trump.
One of my favorite categories of videos online is MAGA fans realizing that Donald Trump is a complete fraud, a total failure who is not doing any of the things he promised to do when he was running for president. And matter of fact, he's doing the exact opposite and enriching himself, his friends, and everyone around him while he does it. And that's exactly what I have for you today. I just came across this video of this MAGA fan, this diehard Trump voter, reacting to Trump's tariffs being deemed illegal and unconstitutional by the Supreme Court. Court, and he's not happy. He says the administration has failed. They've given him and the people around him nothing, and maybe he's not a Trump fan anymore. And I also have some other videos of MAGA fans reacting to some recent news, including the Epstein files, where they are not happy with Donald Trump. So before we do any of that, please make sure to subscribe down below, drop a like on the video, comment, let me know what you think about these clips, and if you'd like to see more of them, I'm happy to bring them to you. I love talking about stuff like this. If you're on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to rate the show 5 stars and follow along. And without further ado, let's get into it. So I actually want to start with this opinion piece from the Wall Street Journal. I only want to read you one paragraph from it, but it's significant. The Wall Street Journal is owned by Rupert Murdoch. Now, the paper is not right-wing by any stretch of the imagination. It's pretty center, but their editorial board, on the other hand, is pretty right-wing. They like Donald Trump, and they just wrote this opinion piece yesterday saying Trump demeans himself as he attacks the Supreme Court. And I just want to read you this first paragraph. Donald Trump owes the Supreme Court an apology to the individual justices he smeared on Friday and the institution itself. Mr. Trump doubtless won't offer one, but his rant in response to his tariff defeat at the court was arguably the worst moment of his presidency. Now, I don't know if it's the worst moment of his presidency. I think covering up the Epstein files might do that, but to each their own. Everybody has their opinion. At least they're saying it. You know what I mean? At least they're saying it. And so I want to show you this first clip of this guy reacting to the tariffs being struck down, and he's not happy. Not happy even a little bit. Watch.
The Supreme Court has ruled that Trump's tariffs are unconstitutional. Golden age update, guys. We've got nothing. We might have to pay back $150 billion to other countries and nations and businesses. Meanwhile, the American people have been screwed this entire time as prices have went up on the tariffs, and now it's been ruled unconstitutional where we may be having to pay it back. This administration's a joke. It's over. This administration is an absolute travesty. We've got nothing. No mass deportations. We've got no actual release of the Epstein files. So many more to go. We have no tariffs. They're unconstitutional now. So everything you voted for is a complete lie. Trump is a complete lie. It is ridiculous. I'm tired of it. Welcome to the golden age.
So we've all been saying this for years, by the way, that Donald Trump is a lie. He's a fraud. Everybody around him is a complete fraud. This guy, I guess, is just waking up.
Fucking scream. This is exactly what you fucking voted for. You know, we talk about ways of coping in these horrible times. You know how I cope? I go on YouTube and I watch long-ass videos of MAGA regretting their vote. And as they're sitting there crying and distraught and being like, how could I have been fooled so badly? You know what the common denominator always is? It's not about all the disgusting, horrible things they've done to little kids. It's not about all of the black and brown people that they're shipping off to El Salvador without due process. It's not about the innocent fucking civilians that are getting shot in the street. It's not even about the hundreds of billions of dollars of tax money that he's stealing from the American people for his own vanity projects. It's because the bullshit finally affected them personally. It's because while the core ideology of the modern conservative movement is racism, which is why they fell for Donald Trump in the first place, their primary motive for anything is selfishness. And that is the sole reason they were so goddamn gullible that they swallowed everything Donald Trump said, yet they refused to listen to anyone else. Trump's going to build a huge wall and Mexico's going to pay for it. How do you know that? Because he said so. Trump is a successful billionaire. He's a great businessman. How do you know that? He's been bankrupt multiple times. I don't know, because he said so. Donald Trump is the only person who can get us out of this mess. How do you know? He said so. I mean, also, the Epstein files were entirely a Democratic hoax, and the 2020 election was stolen with no evidence, and the 20-plus people that have accused Donald Trump of sexually assaulting them are all lying. You know how I know? Because he said so. How did so many millions of people fall to a clusterfuck of third-grade mentality? And now they want to be welcomed back with open arms by doing nothing except just saying they regret it. It's like committing war crimes and then just saying I'm sorry. It doesn't mean jack shit. The only thing that will mean anything are actions. Which means what I think is a good idea is that every single one of these individual former Trump cultists has to go out and physically convince 50 of their friends to never vote for Republicans ever again. That'll be a start. Also, get some fucking therapy. Find some way to deprogram yourself from falling head over heels in love with a malignant narcissist who thinks he's Jesus. Because you're gonna fall for that exact same shit all over again. The second another old white Republican gets up to a podium and says, I'm gonna get rid of all them illegals. Learn to coexist in fucking society. Learn to understand and be okay with the fact that the people around you who have different colored skin are not only just people like yourself, but many of them are smarter than you. And you have to be okay with that. Otherwise, you're going to constantly be fawning over authoritarian assholes trying to prove that somehow you are the best.
Yep, he's absolutely right. They're not upset because they suddenly grew a conscience. They're upset because the consequences finally landed on their doorstep instead of someone else's.
Donald Trump is lying to us. And I'm not a Democrat. I voted for Donald Trump 3 times. I went to the inauguration. Donald Trump posted about me and my friends on his own Truth Social. Melania invited me to some sort of red carpet special event for her movie in Washington, D.C. Charlie Kirk had me at some sort of VIP Republican thing. You don't do that if you're a Democrat. You don't go to those things. You don't get invited to those things. If you're a Democrat, I might not be full on 100%, strong right, but I'm definitely not strong left. I'm kind of like slight middle, libertarian, Republican. And at the end of the day, I don't want to be a part of the Republican Party anymore because Donald Trump lies to you guys on a continual basis and you believe the lie. All the people in my comments are like, you were never a Republican. Dude, you guys are being lied to every single day by Donald Trump. You'll listen to him saying, hey, we have the best economy the world's ever seen. But like Joe Biden's inflation rate when he left office is better than what it is today. It's 3.5% today. Joe Biden left at 2.9%. Literally last month it was 4.2%. So it's more expensive to live in a Donald Trump world than a Joe Biden world. And I'm pro-life. And I like traditional values. You're talking to a guy who disagrees with the Democrat Party, but I would rather side with them and stop what Donald Trump's doing right now because he is destroying America.
The past 24 hours have been insane for the United States. Donald Trump striking 3 different nuclear facilities in Iran, global fallout, wonders of if this leads to a broader war around the world. But something's happening here at home that is devastating for Donald Trump, which is MAGA folks, people who are aligned with Donald Trump, people who voted for him, people who support him in Congress, are turning on him, are criticizing his decision to strike Iran. So I want to show you a wide variety of examples from elected officials to conservative commentators and influencers and those kind of folks. But before I do that, I want to start here, showing you something that Charlie Kirk, a MAGA influencer, a huge fan of Donald Trump, posted recently. This was posted June 12th, 2025. So this was about 2-ish weeks ago, maybe a week and 5 days, whatever it might be. And he asked his followers, should the United States get involved in Israel's war against Iran? There were over 489,000 votes amongst his MAGA fans. And you can see the poll right in front of your eyes. 90% of his followers voted no. They said no intervention in the Middle East, no United States getting involved in the war against Iran. Only 10% said yes. And so what did Donald Trump go and do? He got involved in the war against Iran. He drone struck Iran 3 different places, and now the United States is on the verge of war with Iran, if we're not already there. I imagine that we're already there. And so this has prompted a lot of backlash amongst those people who voted no. For example, let's just start with elected officials, people serving in the government. Donald Trump posted his statement announcing the drone strikes on Twitter yesterday, and Republican Representative Thomas Massie, MAGA guy, somebody who, wore the red hat, praises Donald Trump, votes with him virtually 100% of the time, said this is not constitutional. Now, that's something that a lot of Democrats have been saying. AOC and others have pointed out that what Donald Trump has done by just completely leaving Congress out of the picture and just going after Iran is not constitutional. And it's something that Thomas Massie, a MAGA Republican, is also saying. Now, I'm sure Donald Trump will come after him in some capacity, whether it be public or private. But this is a Republican representative saying this. Here's another example. Rand Paul's chief strategist, Doug Stafford. So he doesn't necessarily serve in the government, but works very closely with Republicans who do. And he said, quote, according to sources, the vice president, the secretary of defense, and the DNI advised against getting involved with Iran. Why have them if you're not going to listen to them? Wow, a scathing response. And it's a valid point. I mean, Donald Trump has been asked by many different reporters, like, hey, what's the intel that you have to suggest that Iran actually has a nuclear weapon? Like, that's not an adversarial question. It's genuine curiosity. Like, why do you think that this is the case? And Donald Trump has just written everybody off. He said, no, my intelligence community is wrong. All those people are wrong. Tulsi Gabbard is wrong. The Secretary of Defense is wrong. And he just went with his own intuition, I suppose, is what he's relying on, which is not good if you're serving as president of the United States and you're getting the United States into a war. So, like, why have these people? Now, let's be abundantly clear. The vice president, the secretary of defense, and the DNI in its current state with MAGA leadership wouldn't provide really any great advice anyway, but nonetheless, the point stands that why have them, even if you're coming from a MAGA perspective. Here's another one that was stunning when I saw it. Kim Iverson, who labels herself as an independent, but not really. She's pretty MAGA, and she endorsed Donald Trump before the election, has, supported Trump, praised him, and things like that. And she said, for the first time ever, I'll be voting straight Democrat in the midterms, just to signal my absolute disgust with this administration's betrayal. A betrayal, she calls it. And look at this. Our only power is to keep handing losses to each side when they fail us. At some point, they'll get the message. So she's saying, hey, I'm going to vote for Democrats in 2026. I've been betrayed by Donald Trump. And let's just be clear. Like, this is absolutely a betrayal. Donald Trump told everybody that he was the pro-peace candidate, that there would be no conflict under him. And then what happens? There's an immense amount of conflict under him. Under 6 months of Donald Trump being into office, we are at war with Iran after all the Republicans told us that would never happen. He's the peacemaker. He's the peacemaker. And then suddenly, well, there you go. Now I want to show you some responses from some just Trump fans, average everyday folks who subscribe to MAGA people. The great folks at Midas Touch posted this on Twitter yesterday. Steve Bannon's live stream chat during Trump's speech where he was talking about the strikes. And people were saying, I do not support this. Trump should have listened to Bannon. What a mistake.
Are starting to regret their vote for Trump. From beekeepers to soybean to hay producers, all of them are starting to say, I never thought that voting for Trump 3 times would result in me losing tens of thousands of dollars. A beekeeper out of North Carolina says, yeah, I proudly voted for Trump all 3 times. I flew flags for him and put signs for him in the yard. But now I'm out tens of thousands of dollars due to lost federal funding and tariffs, so I cannot export my products, my honey and my wax, to other countries like I could before, and nobody's buying it in the United States. Hay producers in Idaho and Utah that export alfalfa hay to China are now seeing 135% tariffs put on their product, and all of a sudden, they don't have anywhere to ship it. They held it all winter in hopes of sending it off to China in the spring, and now China's not willing to buy. Soybean producers are once again being hit harder than they were in the first Trump administration, and China, for its part, has diversified where it pulls these products from, with Brazil becoming the #1 soybean exporter, and other countries picking up the slack for honey, for beeswax, and for hay around the world. Now, China's doing a great job diversifying, and the United States has relied on exports to China for so long that its farmers are going to just continue to suffer. Once again, the majority of them voted for Trump, and now
for Trump, and every day I regret my decision more and more and more. Back in November, I threw away all of my Trump what have yous, the hat, the sweatshirts, the shirt. If it said his name, I don't fucking want it. I don't want it. Don't get it twisted, though. Do not get it twisted. You could not have paid me to vote for Kamala. In fact, all of this has now got me thinking, do I even vote ever again? Because they all suck. They're all on the same team. They just represent differently. Are we voting third party? Or are we going to finally overthrow the government? I'm ready, man. Let's do it. Let's go. We got nothing left to lose. Really, we don't. But yeah, I never thought I would say it, but a Trump hater.
Trump in the 2024 election. And I kind of just want to look in retrospect on if I would still make this decision or not. And the answer is hell no, I would not make this decision. I'm going to give things that Trump ran on that he is not completing. First of all, he said he was going to end the Russia-Ukraine war in 24 hours that he got into office. Also said he's going to put a cap on credit card interest. Not happening. He said he was going to go all in on domestic energy production to bring electricity costs down. Nope. Trump also said he was not going to go into Iran, and look what's happening. I'm going to take this as a learning lesson to not always listen to what candidates are promising, because they're usually not going to do it.
This is not what I voted for. This is quite literally exactly what you voted for. And if you truly did not think that this was going to happen by electing that man into office, then you are willingly uneducated and ignorant. And I suggest next time you think about voting in an election, you educate yourself other than watching Fox News. Yeah.
A lot of people in MAGA are starting to see the end of this horrific global nightmare, which is known as the MAGA regime, which is coming to a climax because they cannot keep this group together if the strong man is frail. And all we're seeing from Kanks right now is utter frailty, dementia, physical and mental decline, to quote him, the likes of which the world has never seen. Tucker Carlson is noticing this. And Tucker Carlson, we all need to keep an eye on. He is an opportunist and he is a grifter. And he is already starting to create so much daylight between himself and this MAGA regime. I think he's probably positioning himself for a run because he knows that this cult has to go somewhere. He is already closing the curtains on Dear Leader. Play the clip.
That you hope that Charlie Kirk's death won't be used by a group we now call bad actors to create a society that was the opposite of the one he worked to build. You hope that. You hope that a year from now, the turmoil we're seeing in the aftermath of his murder won't be leveraged to bring hate speech laws to this country. And trust me, if it is, if that does happen, there is never a more justified moment for civil disobedience than that, ever. And there never will be. Because if they can tell you what to say, they're telling you what to think. There is nothing they can't do to you because they don't consider you human. They don't believe you have a soul. A human being with a soul, a free man, has a right to say what he believes, not to hurt other people, but to express his views.
All right, this strategy is twofold. Number one, it is self-preservation, because if he wants to have a political future after the passing of Kanks or the passing of the MAGA regime to J.D. Vance or whomever, he sees what they're trying to do. They are using a lot of, like Charlie Kirk's death, for example, as a Reichstag fire style calling to erode civil liberties. And if they concentrate power, nobody will ever be able to puncture inside of leadership. It will be kind of fixed. And it's all going to be operated by these oligarchs that own Little Smokey, the failed drag queen, J.D. Vance. But this is already happening. What Tucker Carlson is scared of right there is this consolidation of power and eroding civil liberties. And a sitting U.S. senator is already doing this. Kylie, pop up the tweet. Senator Eric Schmidt.
I think in terms of what his legacy ends up being, it's tough to say that at this point.
Yeah.
I do think for sure that, when you launch a war of choice, man, you put all your chips in as far as legacy goes as a commander in chief. And so he will be judged off the results of this war. And as you know, as I've made the case many times on the show, my prediction of that is that it's going to be a disaster. I think he's destroyed his coalition and set back the party quite a bit. But ultimately, in some ways, Donald Trump's going to be judged by what the long-term change of his administration was. And I got to say, from my perspective, I think while he did revolutionize American political culture and in many ways American political media, I don't think he revolutionized at all the American system of government. And for the last 25 years, we've had an experiment, the biggest experiment in human history, in big government spending, artificially low interest rates, and printing money. We've printed more money in the last 15 years than have ever been printed in history and spent more money from the federal government. In that same period of time, we've had record high levels of immigration. That really hasn't changed over the last 10 years. It's only gotten worse.
In other words, Trump has actively made things worse given that he's dominated the past 10 years. It's a pretty brutal diagnosis of Donald Trump's legacy, right? If we're contemplating what Trump's legacy is, this is a former Trump supporter and Trump voter saying basically it's dog shit. So Piers follows up with Andrew Wilson. Andrew Wilson, for those of you who don't know, is a right-wing debater. He is the host of The Crucible on YouTube. He's very successful. I actually debated Andrew in person along with Myron Gaines from Fresh and Fit and Luke Beasley at Tim Pool's house for Tim Pool's podcast. It was like a year or two ago. So let's hear what Andrew Wilson, who has been a strident supporter of Donald Trump, what he's had to say about Trump's legacy.
Andrew Wilson, you posted, I've always said I don't support the war, but still support Trump. Now, of course, Trump refuses to call it a war because if it was a war, he'd have to get congressional approval for it. And American presidents don't tend to do that. So you haven't officially had a war since World War II, I think. But notwithstanding that, how big a threat to Trump's overall legacy could this Iran war end up being?
Oh, it could ruin him. I mean, what Smith says is essentially correct. The idea that now he's being compared with Jimmy Carter when he had been ripping Carter to pieces, especially in his first term, I think bodes very, very poorly for him. I do agree that it has divided his base substantially, and it's weakened him as a president, this particular conflict. I don't think that it was ultimately a good idea, and he should move back to domestic issues if he doesn't want this to completely corrupt his entire political ideology and the America First messaging.
It's a pretty grim diagnosis from Andrew Wilson.
MAGA is having a complete meltdown, and Donald Trump is the reason, as they are struggling to defend him. Now, you may have seen recently, in response to things that Donald Trump says and does, MAGA defenders are absolutely blowing up. Any question they're asked to respond to something Donald Trump did, they instantly lose their minds. They're not yelling at who asked the question. They're yelling at themselves because they find themselves defending the things they swore Democrats would do. Putting soldiers in the streets, declaring war on U.S. cities, weaponizing the Department of Justice against your political enemies, enriching yourself with the office of the president. These were things that Democrats were supposed to be guilty of. Now the man they idolize is the one that's guilty, and they have to go out there and defend it every single time. And worse yet, we're only 8 months in, so they know there's more coming. They're going to have to change their ethics, their beliefs, their principles in order to defend Donald Trump, and they're not happy about it. MAGA is having a complete meltdown, and Donald...
Why are MAGA turning up on Donald Trump? So after he lose everything. So for years, Donald Trump and the MAGA movement seems almost impossible to separate. So his supporters stood by him through election, court battles, and endless political fight. So many have believed that he was the only leader willing to stand up to Washington and fight for ordinary Americans. But recently, a different conversation has started to grow up. So some long-time MAGA supporters are asking whether their loyalty has actually been paid off, or whatever it has cost them more than what they have expected. So the frustration isn't coming from everyone, but it is becoming more noticeable. So some supporters feel that years of political battles have brought more division than victories. So they try to point to election losses, legal challenges, and constant conflict as signs that the movement may need a new direction. Others, they simply feel that it exhausted after years of intense political drama and wonder if the future requires a different strategy. So for many people, the biggest concern is results. So every political movement promises change, but the voters normally ask a simple question. So has my life personally improved? So some Americans continue to support Trump because they believe he fought for issues they care about, including border security, inflation, and the economy. Others, however, they argue that the constant battles have made it harder to achieve lasting political success. So there is also a growing debate inside the Republican Party. So while many leaders remain loyal to Donald Trump, others believe that the party should begin preparing for a future that doesn't depend on one person, because they depend too much on Donald Trump. So that disagreement has created tension between those who want to continue the MAGA movement exactly as it is and those who believe it must evolve to win future election. So social media has made this disagreement even more visible. Supporters who once defend Trump without hesitation are now openly questioning campaign decision, endorsement, and political strategy. So some still admire him, but worry that the movement have become too focused on defending one individual instead of building a broader conservative agenda. So at the same time, millions of Americans remain firmly behind Donald Trump. So they argue that he continues to face criticism because he challenged powerful institutions and refused to follow traditional political rules. From their perspective, the attack against him only prove that they should continue supporting him. They believe abandoning the movement now would only strengthen the political establishment that have opposed for many years. So the truth is that political movements naturally change over time. As new election approach, supporters begin evaluating what worked, what didn't, and what comes next. They don't necessarily mean MAGA is falling apart. So it may simply mean its supporters are having difficult conversation about the future and how to achieve the goals they believe in. So in the end, whether MAGA supporters are truly turning on Donald Trump depends on which voice you listen to. Some remain completely loyal. Others are asking hard questions for the first time. What is clear is that the movement have reached an important moment. So the choice made in the coming months could shape not only Donald Trump's political future, but also the direction of the Republican Party and American politics for years to come. So I think that's my own opinion. If you have any opinion, you can drop it down in the comment section, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel, like my video and share it, and make sure you subscribe for more video like this. Thanks. Bye.